You will face moments in life where change is impossible. The job you didn't get, the love that walked away, the words you can't take back. In those moments, panic, anger, and despair will fight for control of your mind. Society will tell you to keep pushing or stay positive, but some battles are not meant to be fought, they are meant to be faced. Medusa is one of the most misunderstood figures in mythology. Painted as a monster, she was also a woman wronged, punished for what she could not prevent. Yet in the depths of her transformation, she found a new kind of power, the power to stand still, unblinking, unbroken. Her gaze didn't chase the world, it made the world stop. In female psychology, this image is radical. We are conditioned to smooth over discomfort, to adapt endlessly, to fix everything even when it's beyond our control. But what if the strength lies not in fixing but in facing? What if the truest resilience is to meet reality exactly as it is, without fear, without flinching? Stoic philosophy calls this amor fati, the love of fate. It is not passive surrender, but active acceptance. It's the discipline to say, "This is what is, and I will meet it as I am." Like Medusa, you do not turn yourself into stone, you turn your fears into something that cannot move you. This is not about becoming cold or unreachable. It's about becoming immovable where it matters, so that the chaos around you can't shake the core within you. In a world obsessed with control, the true art is facing what you cannot change and still remaining entirely yourself. When we talk about strength, most people imagine action, fighting harder, pushing further, proving yourself to the world. But real strength, the kind that shapes your life from the inside out, is often found in stillness. The ability to face what you cannot change without collapsing under its weight is not weakness. It's mastery. And in that mastery, Medusa becomes more than a myth. She becomes a mirror for every woman who has ever had to stand her ground when the world told her to yield. In psychology, especially in the context of female resilience, the capacity to accept the unchangeable is linked to emotional regulation, mental health, and long-term stability. You cannot fight reality and win, but you can align yourself with it, using your energy where it will have impact rather than wasting it on battles. You cannot win. This is not passive resignation. This is active choice, to meet reality with dignity, clarity, and an unshakable center. Stoic philosophy teaches us that our peace depends not on changing the world, but on mastering our own perception of it. Medusa's still, unflinching gaze embodies this truth. Her power was not in chasing her enemies, but in holding her position so firmly that the world adjusted to her presence. This is the mental posture every woman can develop, where chaos no longer dictates. Your emotions and pressure no longer defines your worth. Before we go deeper into this journey, I want to invite you to take part in the conversation. Subscribe for more content that blends psychology, philosophy, and myth to help you strengthen your inner life. Like this video if the theme speaks to you, and leave a comment telling me your country and city. Your voice matters here because together we're building a space where women learn to face the unchangeable without fear. The first step in facing what you cannot change is understanding the distinction between what is within your control and what is not. Women, in particular, are often socialized to feel responsible for the emotional environment around them, to adapt, to soothe, to repair. From a young age, we are taught that our worth is measured by how well we manage the reactions, expectations, and moods of others. Yet, much of life lies outside our power. The job that slips away, the relationship that ends, the comment that wounds, these events will arrive without warning and without regard for our preparedness. The strength that Medusa models is not the ability to prevent these occurrences, but to meet them with equanimity. She does not attempt to control the storm. She becomes the immovable center within it. From a psychological perspective, learning to differentiate between what we can influence and what we cannot is central to emotional resilience. Cognitive behavioral theory emphasizes the role of perception in shaping our emotional response. When a woman internalizes an uncontrollable event as a personal failure, anxiety and helplessness escalate. The Medusa archetype embodies the countermodel. She does not personalize the uncontrollable. She recognizes that her gaze, her presence, her response, and her boundaries remain fully within her control even when the external world moves unpredictably. Practicing this mindset involves daily reflection, identifying moments when anxiety arises from attempting to manipulate what cannot be changed and consciously redirecting focus to personal agency. Stoic philosophy reinforces this perspective. Epictetus, one of the foundational Stoic thinkers, wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us." The power of this distinction is profound. It frees energy from fruitless attempts to shape reality to our will and redirects it toward cultivating inner virtue, clarity, and strength. For women facing societal pressures that often demand perfection or compliance, this principle is liberating. Medusa's myth, when viewed through this lens, transforms from a story of punishment into a blueprint for mastering one's inner life. She endures, she stands, she does not flinch. Facing what cannot be changed also requires emotional regulation. Neuroscience confirms that prolonged emotional reactivity increases stress, decreases problem-solving capacity, and impacts long-term mental health. Women, frequently expected to balance emotion and social expectation, experience this pressure acutely. Medusa's gaze symbolizes a disciplined mind. She sees threats without being overwhelmed by them. Daily practices such as mindfulness meditation, journaling, or deliberate reflection on emotional triggers can help cultivate this unblinking gaze within ourselves, giving space to act consciously rather than react impulsively. Another critical element is the concept of boundaries. Women often struggle with setting limits because social conditioning equates compliance with value. Yet, Medusa's transformation teaches radical self-preservation. Her gaze is protective, defensive, and assertive. Establishing boundaries, saying no when necessary, refusing emotional overextension, and prioritizing personal energy is not selfish. It is an act of aligning with what is within your control. In practical terms, this could mean limiting toxic relationships, managing time to reduce overwhelm, or clearly communicating limits in both professional and personal contexts. Isolation, often misunderstood as loneliness, is another component. Of the Medusa archetype, solitude is not a punishment. It is a practice of self-sovereignty. Women who embrace time alone develop an internal locus of control, relying less on external validation and more on personal judgment. This form of solitude allows for reflection, recalibration, and strengthening of inner principles. Psychologically, it fosters autonomy and resilience. Medusa's myth illustrates that power is often cultivated in quiet, unseen spaces before it manifests in the external world. It is also important to recognize the role of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation or passivity. It means acknowledging reality fully without distortion. Denial, avoidance, or blame may provide temporary relief but prolong suffering. By embracing the unchangeable, women can redirect focus to meaningful action where influence exists. Medusa's gaze is a metaphor for this stance, unyielding, precise, and aware. Her strength lies not in altering what is outside her control, but in commanding her own perception, emotion, and response. Practical exercises to develop this mindset include daily journaling prompts such as, what happened today that I could not control, and how did I respond? Or, where did I expend energy trying to change the unchangeable? Answering these questions honestly cultivates insight into habitual patterns of over-control, guiding women toward alignment with what is within their power. Reflection on these patterns, combined with breathing exercises and visualization of the steady gaze, strengthens the ability to remain centered amid external turbulence. Resilience, cultivated through these practices, has a cumulative effect. Over time, women learn to withstand social pressure, criticism, and emotional volatility with steadiness. Anxiety diminishes, focus sharpens, and confidence grows. Medusa's archetype provides a symbolic anchor. Her gaze reminds us that true power is not in conquering others, but in mastering oneself. This mastery is quiet, unassuming, yet unbreakable, a beacon for women navigating a chaotic world. Finally, facing what cannot be changed allows for freedom. Freedom arises not from altering the external world, but from liberation from reactive patterns, fear-driven decisions, and dependence on approval. Women who embody Medusa's principles move through life with clarity, integrity, and authority. Their presence itself communicates strength, setting boundaries without aggression, maintaining calm without passivity, and choosing action only where it is meaningful. In this way, Medusa becomes both mirror and mentor, a reminder that resilience is cultivated within and expressed in the deliberate, conscious alignment with what truly matters. Learning to face what cannot be changed begins with awareness of your internal landscape. Women often carry the weight of expectations, both imposed externally and internalized over a lifetime. These expectations create a continuous tension between who we are and who the world wants us to be. Medusa, in her transformation, represents a radical shift, a woman who refuses to be defined by the injustice she suffered. Her gaze is unflinching, a psychological metaphor for self-awareness and emotional sovereignty. By cultivating awareness of thoughts, impulses, and reactions, women can begin to differentiate between internal responses that are within their control and external events that are not. Emotional intensity is a common challenge. Women are socialized to manage emotions in ways that prioritize harmony over authenticity, which can lead to suppression or overcompensation. Psychologically, this creates patterns of anxiety, guilt, and chronic stress. The Medusa archetype teaches that facing these emotions without judgment, observing them with steady awareness, is the foundation of resilience. When a difficult situation arises, instead of reacting impulsively, women can pause, recognize their emotional state, and consciously decide how to respond. This practice is not detachment. It is disciplined engagement with reality. Stoicism reinforces this approach. Marcus Aurelius advised examining impressions before allowing them to dictate behavior. Applying this to female psychology, women can develop a cognitive filter, a deliberate process of assessing whether a situation demands energy, can be influenced, or must simply be accepted. Medusa's steady gaze symbolizes this filter, illustrating that power resides not in controlling others, but in controlling one's own attention, emotion, and action. Each choice to pause, reflect, and respond builds an internal fortress that is resistant to external turbulence. Boundaries remain central to this practice. Without clearly defined limits, energy dissipates into futile attempts to manage others' expectations or correct the uncontrollable. Medusa's gaze functions as a symbolic boundary, an invisible line that protects her core. Practically, this translates into saying no when necessary, removing oneself from emotionally draining situations, and asserting personal needs without apology. Women who cultivate this discipline discover that self-respect and clarity grow hand in hand with emotional Resilience. Another critical element is the conscious cultivation of solitude. In a culture that often equates visibility with value, the practice of intentional isolation is radical. Medusa's myth illustrates the power inherent in retreat and reflection. Time alone allows women to integrate experiences, strengthen internal dialogue, and recalibrate emotional responses. Research in psychology demonstrates that solitude, when chosen intentionally, enhances self-regulation, decision-making, and creativity. It provides the mental space to face the unchangeable without distraction or external pressure. Acceptance is not synonymous with passivity. Women often fear that acknowledging limits means surrendering ambition or giving up control. On the contrary, acceptance allows for strategic action. Medusa embodies this principle. She acknowledges the forces against her, yet chooses deliberate action only within her sphere of influence. Practicing acceptance involves honest evaluation of circumstances, recognizing immutable factors, and channeling energy toward meaningful engagement rather than futile resistance. This approach minimizes emotional exhaustion and reinforces a sense of agency. Mindful reflection and journaling are practical tools to reinforce these principles. Daily prompts can include, "What challenges arose today that I could not change?" Or, "How did I respond to situations outside my control?" Writing provides clarity, reinforces patterns of conscious choice, and fosters emotional regulation. By externalizing thoughts and responses, women cultivate the capacity to observe their internal state with the clarity and steadiness that Medusa's archetype represents. Resilience also requires consistency. One moment of calm in the face of chaos does not establish lasting strength. Women must practice daily self-discipline, reinforcing boundaries, reflection, and emotional regulation. Stoic exercises such as morning reflection on potential challenges or evening review of responses cultivate a mindset attuned to reality rather than desire or fear. The Medusa archetype reminds us that power is cumulative, it is built over time. Through repeated acts of presence, awareness, and control over one's own mind. Facing what cannot be changed also strengthens interpersonal relationships. Women who master this principle engage with others from a position of stability rather than reactivity. They listen without being pulled into unnecessary drama, respond without defensiveness, and maintain presence even amid conflict. Medusa's gaze is protective, not aggressive. Similarly, women can use their emotional mastery to create safe, grounded spaces for themselves and others without losing authority or self-respect. Ultimately, this chapter demonstrates that the power of facing what cannot be changed is not an abstract ideal, it is a daily practice, a deliberate cultivation of mental, emotional, and psychological strength. Medusa's archetype offers both inspiration and methodology, unblinking awareness, steady boundaries, disciplined solitude, and deliberate action within the realm of control. Women who embrace these practices do not simply endure life's unchangeable events, they transform their responses into a source of enduring power, presence, and authenticity. Understanding fear is essential in facing what cannot be changed. Fear is an automatic response to uncertainty, loss, or threat, and it often hijacks rational thought. Women are frequently socialized to anticipate danger, to worry about consequences, or to preemptively adjust behavior to avoid conflict. While these instincts may serve short-term safety, they can also trap us in cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. Medusa's myth offers a striking counterpoint. She does not flee from threat or manipulate her circumstances to avoid harm. She faces reality fully, unblinking. Her gaze symbolizes the disciplined confrontation of fear, a model of psychological courage. From a cognitive behavioral perspective, Fear is a product of interpretation rather than reality. The event itself is neutral. The mind assigns significance, often amplifying danger or loss. Recognizing this distinction is crucial for women seeking resilience. Medusa's archetype embodies the principle that perception can be controlled. Through deliberate reflection, journaling, or cognitive restructuring, women can observe fear as a signal rather than a command. This allows the energy of fear to be redirected toward constructive responses, rather than fueling paralysis or reactionary behavior. Stoic philosophy reinforces this principle by emphasizing that external events are not inherently harmful, only our judgments about them create distress. Epictetus asserted that it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Women who internalize this teaching learn to face difficult circumstances without self-blame or panic. Medusa's gaze, unflinching and decisive, serves as a metaphor. She does not deny danger, but she does not allow it to dominate her mind. By cultivating mental clarity, women can navigate fear with controlled, intentional responses. Another critical component is the regulation of emotional intensity. High arousal emotions, anger, panic, grief, can overwhelm cognitive capacity, leading to impulsive decisions and strained relationships. Women often carry disproportionate responsibility for managing both their own and others' emotions. Medusa's archetype models a different approach. Emotional energy is neither suppressed nor uncontrolled, but directed with purpose. Practices such as mindful breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and focused reflection allow women to observe intense feelings without being swept away by them. Boundaries remain essential in managing fear and anxiety. Fear often arises from overexposure to situations or people beyond our influence. Medusa's myth demonstrates the protective function of firm limits. Her gaze repels intrusion and preserves her agency. In practical terms, this translates into conscious choices about whom to engage with, what media to consume, and which commitments to accept. Women who establish boundaries reinforce their capacity to confront what is unchangeable without depletion, maintaining focus on what they can influence. Solitude is another tool for mastering fear. Isolation, when chosen intentionally, allows for reflection, mental rehearsal, and emotional recalibration. Women who practice deliberate solitude cultivate self-reliance, resilience, and an internal compass that does not depend on external validation. Medusa's myth underscores the strength generated in this private space. Her power develops in stillness, unseen by the outside world until it becomes fully manifest. Regular periods of solitude create a buffer against the chaos of daily life, enabling women to face challenges with steadiness. Acceptance complements these practices. Recognizing that certain events cannot be altered does not equate to passivity. Rather, acceptance is the conscious acknowledgement of reality, freeing cognitive and emotional resources for meaningful action. Medusa's gaze symbolizes this alignment. She sees without distortion, responding only where agency exists. Women practicing acceptance focus energy on decisions, behaviors, and relationships where influence is possible, leaving futile attempts to control the uncontrollable behind. Practical exercises to integrate this mindset include daily reflection on Saldan, fears that arose, journaling to identify reactive patterns and fade, visualization techniques to cultivate the steady gaze. Women can imagine themselves embodying Medusa's calm, protective presence, approaching challenges with clarity rather than panic. Over time, this practice strengthens the neural pathways associated with emotional regulation, attentional control, and deliberate action. The cumulative effect of these exercises is resilience that transcends situational circumstances. Women who cultivate fear management, emotional regulation, boundaries, solitude, and acceptance develop a stable inner core. Medusa's archetype offers both symbolic inspiration and practical guidance. She reminds us that power is generated from within, anchored in perception, response, and self-discipline. This internal power allows women to navigate social pressures, emotional turbulence, and life's uncertainties without compromising integrity or authenticity. Finally, mastery over fear transforms not only personal experience but interpersonal dynamics. Women who respond calmly rather than reactively influence their environment through presence, composure, and decisiveness. Medusa's gaze is protective, not aggressive. Similarly, women's internal steadiness can create stability. In relationships, guide teams effectively and inspire others without domination. The ability to face fear and remain centered is the foundation of enduring empowerment. A skill honed, practiced, and reinforced every day, much like Medusa's unwavering stance. Resilience is often tested not by isolated events but by the cumulative weight of life's pressures. Women, in particular, are expected to navigate multiple roles: professional, familial, social, while maintaining composure and empathy. This constant demand can erode mental and emotional stability. Medusa's archetype offers a model of sustaining power amid relentless external pressures. Her gaze is unflinching, her presence immutable. This is not about dominating the world but about cultivating an inner fortitude that remains intact despite external turbulence. Recognizing that one cannot control every expectation, demand, or judgment is the first step toward sustained resilience. Emotional regulation is central to this practice. Women often absorb emotional cues from others, amplifying stress and anxiety. Psychological research confirms that mirroring others' emotions can lead to burnout, particularly in caregiving or socially demanding roles. Medusa's myth illustrates a different approach. She engages with the world without internalizing its volatility. This requires conscious effort, pausing before responding, observing without judgment, and differentiating personal values from external influence. Developing this skill enhances clarity, decision-making, and self-preservation, allowing women to face life's unchangeable events with composure. Boundaries serve as the practical manifestation of internal fortitude. Without them, energy is dissipated on controlling the uncontrollable or accommodating impossible demands. Medusa's gaze symbolizes the psychological boundary: firm, unwavering, protective. For women, this can translate into setting limits on time, energy, and emotional labor. Saying no to unrealistic requests, prioritizing tasks according to personal values, and removing oneself from toxic environments reinforces resilience. The consistent application of boundaries strengthens self-respect and creates a psychological buffer against the pressures of a world that often undervalues women's autonomy. The cultivation of solitude remains a critical tool. Deliberate time alone allows reflection, integration, and recalibration. In solitude, women can confront their emotions without distraction, develop self-reliance, and cultivate an internal compass that is independent of external validation. Medusa's power develops in isolation. Her myth reminds us that strength often emerges in private before it manifests publicly. Practicing solitude daily, whether through journaling, meditation, or intentional periods of silence, builds emotional resilience and prepares women to face unchangeable challenges with clarity and confidence. Acceptance of reality is not passive. Women may resist acknowledging limitations, fearing loss of control or perceived weakness. Acceptance, however, is strategic. It frees energy from futile resistance and directs it toward what is actionable. Medusa's gaze embodies this principle. She sees the external world without distortion, focusing attention where influence exists. In practical terms, women can analyze situations objectively, identify controllable elements, and release attachment to outcomes beyond their power. This approach reduces anxiety and enhances effectiveness in both personal and professional spheres. Mindful reflection exercises further strengthen this approach. Journaling prompts such as, "What today was beyond my control and how did I respond?" or "Where did I exert energy unnecessarily?" cultivate awareness of habitual overextension. Visualization techniques, imagining oneself with Medusa's steady gaze, reinforce presence and emotional regulation. Cognitive rehearsal of challenging scenarios helps prepare for real-life encounters, ensuring responses are deliberate rather than reactive. Over time, these practices reshape neural pathways, enhancing capacity for calm and focused action. Emotional resilience also intersects with social interactions. Women who maintain composure under pressure influence their environment positively. Calm, deliberate responses can de-escalate conflict, inspire cooperation, and set a tone of stability. In relationships or teams, Medusa's archetype exemplifies the principle. Her gaze is protective, not aggressive. Women who cultivate this steadiness act from authority rooted in self-mastery rather than dominance, creating spaces where both themselves and others can function optimally. Self-discipline underpins all these practices. Resilience is not a singular event. It is built through consistent application of reflection, boundaries, emotional regulation, and acceptance. Stoic exercises, such as morning intention setting and evening review, embed these principles into daily life. Medusa's myth illustrates that power is cumulative. It grows as deliberate habits are repeated, strengthening the mind and fortifying emotional stability. Women who commit to these practices develop a resilient center capable of weathering life's unchangeable events. Facing the unchangeable ultimately leads to empowerment. Women who integrate Medusa's archetype cultivate a presence that is unshakable, clear, and decisive. Their decisions are informed by principles, not reactionary. Fear. The combination of emotional regulation, boundaries, acceptance, and self-discipline creates a psychological armor that allows them to navigate life's pressures without losing authenticity. Medusa's gaze serves as a constant reminder. Strength is cultivated internally, manifested externally, and protected by conscious awareness. Finally, this chapter emphasizes that empowerment is inseparable from responsibility. Women who face what cannot be changed are accountable to themselves first, choosing deliberate action over reactive response. They honor their own boundaries, regulate their emotions, and accept reality as it is. Medusa's archetype provides both inspiration and methodology, demonstrating that mastery over oneself is the foundation of enduring strength. In a world that often seeks to overwhelm, women who embody these principles stand unflinching, anchored, and fully present. Mastery over what cannot be changed begins with cultivating presence. Women are often pulled into the past, ruminating on mistakes, or the future, anxious about outcomes. This tendency distracts from the only realm where power exists, the present moment. Medusa's gaze is a metaphor for this presence, unflinching, fully aware, and anchored in reality. Psychological research confirms that mindfulness directing attention to the present without judgment reduces anxiety, improves decision-making, and strengthens emotional resilience. Women who develop this capacity encounter unchangeable events with clarity rather than panic, responding with deliberate, informed action. Another critical practice is the regulation of internal dialogue. Women frequently experience self-criticism, or internalized expectations, intensifying stress and undermining confidence. Cognitive behavioral techniques emphasize observing thoughts without attachment and replacing distorted self-talk with objective reflection. Medusa's archetype models. Her power is not in silence alone, but in the clarity and authority of her mental state. By cultivating disciplined internal dialogue, women can navigate social pressures and unchangeable circumstances without succumbing to anxiety or self-doubt. Boundaries, reinforced through both awareness and action, remain central to resilience. Unchangeable events often involve external pressures, unsolicited opinions, or interpersonal conflict. Women who establish and maintain boundaries asserting time, space, and emotional limits protect their energy and reinforce autonomy. Medusa's gaze functions symbolically as a protective boundary, repelling intrusion while maintaining engagement, only where it is meaningful. In practice, this may include prioritizing personal goals, limiting exposure to toxic environments, and communicating limits assertively yet respectfully. Solitude continues to serve as a powerful tool for internal fortification. Regular periods of intentional isolation provide women with time to integrate experiences, reflect on emotional responses, and cultivate self-reliance. Medusa's myth illustrates the transformational potential of these private spaces. Her power develops unseen, yet it is fully realized in her interactions with the external world. Women who embrace solitude build a stable core that withstands social pressures, unexpected events, and emotional turbulence. Acceptance of reality is an active, ongoing process. Women may instinctively resist acknowledging limitations, fearing vulnerability or loss of control. Acceptance, however, is strategic. It frees cognitive and emotional resources for action where influence exists. Medusa's gaze symbolizes this alignment with reality, seeing clearly, responding decisively, and disengaging from futile attempts to alter the unchangeable. Daily reflection on events beyond control, coupled with mindful recognition of personal agency, strengthens this capacity. Practical exercises enhance the embodiment of these principles. Journaling prompts such as, "Which challenges today were beyond my control? And how did I respond to these challenges?" cultivate awareness and facilitate deliberate reflection. Visualization of Medusa's unblinking gaze reinforces emotional steadiness and attentional control. Additionally, breathing techniques and cognitive rehearsal of difficult scenarios prepare women to respond with composure and clarity rather than reactivity. Over time, these practices strengthen psychological resilience and foster a stable internal locus of control. Consistency is crucial in developing enduring strength. Resilience is not the product of isolated moments of courage, but of habitual engagement with awareness, boundaries, emotional regulation, and acceptance. Stoic exercises, including morning reflection and evening review, embed these principles into daily life. Medusa's archetype exemplifies cumulative power. Strength develops incrementally through repeated practice, fortifying both mind and spirit against the unpredictability of life. Facing unchangeable circumstances transforms interpersonal relationships. Women who maintain composure and authority influence their environment positively, modeling stability for others. Calm, deliberate responses reduce conflict, foster collaboration, and inspire confidence in peers or teams. Medusa's gaze is protective, not aggressive. Similarly, women's internal steadiness enables them to guide interactions without domination, creating spaces of clarity, respect, and mutual understanding. Empowerment arises from alignment with reality and disciplined response. Women who cultivate Medusa's qualities, presence, emotional regulation, boundaries, solitude, and acceptance move through life with decisiveness, integrity, and clarity. They are neither reactive to social pressures nor bound by fear of uncontrollable events. Their inner power enables authentic action, fostering confidence, resilience, and personal authority. Ultimately, Chapter 5 emphasizes that mastering what cannot be changed is both a daily practice and a long-term commitment. Medusa's archetype offers a guide: unwavering presence, disciplined emotion, protective boundaries, and reflective solitude. Women who embody these principles transform challenges into opportunities for growth, responding to life's unchangeable realities with strength, dignity, and authenticity. In doing so, they create lives anchored in self-mastery and enduring resilience. Facing what cannot be changed is not a passive act, it is an exercise in deliberate strength. Women who cultivate Medusa's archetype learn to anchor themselves in reality, regulate emotions, and act intentionally within the realm of their influence. This mastery transforms anxiety, frustration, and uncertainty into tools for resilience rather than sources of paralysis. Medusa's gaze serves as a symbolic reminder that true power is internal, cultivated through reflection, discipline, and unwavering presence. The practices outlined emotional regulation, boundary setting, intentional solitude, and acceptance are not abstract ideals but actionable strategies. Daily reflection, mindful awareness, and conscious decision-making reinforce these habits, allowing women to navigate life's unchangeable events with composure and confidence. In embracing what cannot be changed, women reclaim their agency, protect their energy, and align action with values rather than reaction. Ultimately, this journey is one of empowerment and authenticity. By standing firm like Medusa, women establish an inner fortress that cannot be shaken by external chaos or societal expectation. The unblinking gaze is both shield and compass, guiding a life of clarity, presence, and enduring strength. In facing the unchangeable with courage and wisdom, women embody resilience that radiates beyond themselves, shaping both their inner world and their interactions with the larger world around them.